Welcome to the final history lesson for Year 11 this week. We're still in the 19th century and we're still looking at history as a revolution. So medicine rapidly changes during this time period, and one of the things that rapidly changes is the role of women. So today's learning inquiry question is to explain the significance of Garrett Anderson, so Elizabeth Garrett Anderson, for developing the role of women as doctors. So the three learning objectives we're looking at today is to identify the role of women before the 19th century in medicine. We also need to understand the development of women becoming doctors. So how did they actually start to become doctors? And finally, we're going to assess the factors of change in the role of women. So what factors helped improve women's role in medicine? So can you please pause the video now to look at the keywords on the screen? So the first learning objective is to identify the role of women in medicine before the 19th century. So I'm going to read through these two sources, and I would like you to look at the thinking questions and have an idea in your mind for these questions. So source A is a statement made by a Manchester University student who was studying medicine at the time in the 19th century. The presence of young females as spectators in the operating theatre is an outrage on our natural instincts. Source B, from Thomas Huxley, a leading scientist in 1851. In every excellent characteristic, whether mental or physical, the average woman is inferior to the average man. I'd like you to have a think about the thinking questions and maybe post-it note or mentally make a note of the attitudes towards women during this time period. So, to revise, just some information about women training as doctors before the 19th century. So in the Middle Ages, only men were allowed to train as physicians, not women. In the 1600s, the church takes over the licensing of all healers. So if you wanted to be a doctor, you had to get a license from somebody from the Church of England. Wise women were not given licenses. They were accused often of maybe witchcraft and wizardry, spells, etc. So therefore they were not allowed to practice medicine. By the 1700s, surgeons had to have a university degree as well. So women couldn't go to university, they couldn't train to be a doctor, and they can't train to be a surgeon either. So on a whiteboard, I would like you to answer one of the following questions. Developing students to identify what is holding women back from being involved in medicine. Secure students aiming for a 5 or above, what needs to change to allow women to have a role in medicine? And master students aiming for a 7 or above, who needs to get involved or what needs to get involved to ensure that women have a role in medicine? I'd like you to take a picture of your one whiteboard question and upload that onto class charts. The second learning objective is to understand the development of women becoming doctors. So, during this time period, we have three very influential women. The first female doctor in America, Elizabeth Blackwell. The first female doctor in Britain, Elizabeth Garrett Anderson. And the third qualified doctor, female doctor in Britain, Sophia Jex-Blake. So I'd like you to open the document Women in Medicine and to read the timeline. Developing students, I would like you to pick one event and explain how it was a turning point in women becoming doctors, so where everything changed and women were now able to become doctors. Secure students aiming for a 5 or above. I'd like you to make a list of the different ways women had to overcome the barriers to them becoming doctors. So what opposition do they have to deal with? The list ideally should have at least 5 minimum ideas. And master students, could you please instead pick 3 achievements that Garrett Anderson and Jex-Blake achieved during this time period? Take a picture of your completed task and upload onto class charts. And the third learning objective for this lesson is to look at the factors of change in the role of women. So we need to look at how and why do women's role actually change. There are many significant turning points where women were given the opportunity to have a more important role, and you can see A to H on the screen now. Well, they all link to factors and Gatwick factors. So for developing students aiming for a GCSE grade 4, I would like you to link each event to a factor out of Gatwick. So to give an example, A is the Crimean War heavily influenced Florence Nightingale and Mary Seacole to go and help the injured soldiers, help them improve nursing. Well, that links to war as a factor. We have E, that in 1870 male students were protesting about women on their course in Edinburgh University. Clearly they have a very negative attitude towards equality. So that links to attitudes and beliefs. F, the leader of a faculty at a university in Paris had a very positive view of women and was quite in favour of allowing women to be admitted onto a medical course, and therefore allowed Elizabeth Garrett Anderson to study and finish off her education, which also links to attitudes and beliefs. So developing students, I would like you to complete A to H, link each of those events to a factor of Gatwick. Secure students, I would like you to complete the developing, but also could you explain how each of those 8 events actually led to improving women's role in medicine. And master students, I would like you to complete secure, but could you also write a Peel paragraph arguing the most significant factor? Okay, year 11, you need to take a picture of your 1 question answer. You also need to take a picture of your women in medicine, whether you've done the key facts or a mind map. And finally, task 3, you need to take a picture of your factors statements. Thank you very much for completing all of your history work for this week, and we look forward to marking it. I hope you have a lovely half term.